Rajim, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Assalamu alaikum, Ji Ayanu, Pakhair Agile, Ni Hao, Chunashumme, Washmale, Ohaya Gonzaimes, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privet, Kaifa Hal, Hale Shuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasalan Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabia, Balikere, Hosh Galden, Anayo Sayo, Huyamora, Chivatochi, Hal Yod, Kalimera, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Haja Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan. And we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Haja, Assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. So I was thinking when you were saying so many wonderful salams and welcomes in different languages. So I was thinking about the beauty of Islamabad since we grew up in Islamabad and we generally admired the landscape here, the urbanscaping here. And obviously we are a bit concerned about the mushrooming growth here. But let's just talk about how it provides us so many green areas or spaces where we interact with the nature. And I think we have been blessed that our office space is located in such a beautiful green area, which is just across the footsteps of the Magala Hills. And especially when there is a rain shower out there, we could feel the beauty of the nature in front of us. And I think that is something we need to be more grateful of and do not take it for granted. But Shahzad, I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I am a big park person. I love going to the parks. I love interacting with the nature, and I want to have solitude in the park because that allows me to reflect on my train of thoughts and have a more self-introspection and honest conversation with myself. So are you a park person, and if so, which sort of spaces do you enjoy in Islamabad?
I mean, in Islamabad, obviously it has to be Magla Hills, and certainly I think whenever I look forward to having a calmer mind, you know, it's probably drive time for me. You know, so it's like, you know, after, you know, a rainy night, you know, just early in the morning, going, getting breakfast from somewhere and just being by myself, listening to the songs which calm me. And there's a reason why I'm using the term calm twice. So, you know, this was this one thought which I wanted to share with our audiences who are out there, and I would certainly want you to answer this in the first place, and that is that a calm mind, a fit body and a house full of love, these cannot be bought, these must be earned. What's your take on this?
That's absolutely true. And we've heard this thing that money brings in a lot of happiness, but I think it can't buy every happiness. And obviously calmness and serenity is something that comes from within. Obviously there are external factors that affect you in the first place, but it depends upon how you deal with them.
Try buying a Ferrari once, you know, and you'll know how happy you might feel about it. Because I'm a car guy, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, a car you cannot ask somebody to, you know, or probably borrow somebody's car. So probably you'll have to pay the money over there. But when it comes down to love, I think love is all about how much time are you making sure that you're going to give to your family, and that's certainly which builds up that relationship. So whenever I'm far away from home, you know, all of those my three little princesses and darlings at home, they really feel distant from me, you know. So it takes me a lot of time when I come back home from a project, at least 2-3 days of cuddling and being with them, and then they start to, you know, show me that same amount of love. So ladies and gentlemen, obviously it has to be earned. There's no other way. And when it comes down to money, obviously it cannot buy happiness, but at times you can feel happy just because of the fact that you have a lot of money. So please make sure that you work hard. I'm not saying that you really need to be very, you know, aggressive on it, that okay, we want money, but please make sure that there needs to be a balance. Because I believe that whatever amount of money you're going to leave behind, unfortunately, when you know, go for your final abode, ladies and gentlemen, that amount of money which is still in your account is the amount of work which you have done and wasn't really necessary for you to do it. I think that's it.
So now move on to our top stories, which is an important feature of our program, which is about how Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has paid rich tribute to the martyrs, war veterans and the families for their countless sacrifices and contributions made for the defense of the motherland. It was addressing a ceremony to pay tribute to the martyrs and the war veterans at the Army Auditorium GHQ in Rawalpindi. Prime Minister also appreciated the role of armed forces in protecting the territorial integrity of the country and robustly fighting the menace of terrorism across the country. He reiterated that martyrs and war veterans are our pride and respect and honor, and it is binding on each Pakistan to respect them. And Prime Minister emphasized we must never forget that peace and freedom we enjoy today is due to the ultimate sacrifices rendered by these brave sons of the soil Therefore, he saluted their families for sacrificing their loved ones for art today. Earlier, upon his arrival, Prime Minister made farewell visit to GHQ and was received by Chief of the Army Staff, General Syed Asim Munir, and also met with the principal staff officers and was presented with the Guard of the Honor and also laid floral wreath at Yadgare-Shohada in the first
And
place.
it was an honor for me to have hosted the entire ceremony, and
we
to
feel
see,
really proud of you.
I feel proud of myself as well, and I want to thank my Allah Almighty over here that ISPR actually thought that okay, this gentleman can certainly kind of host this ceremony, and it was wonderful to be over there to see that how the Prime Minister of the country, the Chief of Army Staff, all the armed forces have actually extended unwavering supports to the family of the martyrs and the Ghazis of Pakistan, which certainly needs to continue, and they're going to live their legacy. But moving on, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. William Friedkin, the iconic director of the classic horror film The Exorcist, has died at the age of 87 in Los Angeles. And the Hollywood director was said to have suffered health issues in recent years. The Exorcist, released in 1973, had audiences horrified and entranced by the story of a 12-year-old girl possessed by the devil. The film was based on a true story narrated in William Peter Blatty's novel The Exorcist. News media at the time reported cinema goers fainting and vomiting in their seats and people leaving the theater shaking and screaming. The film is reported to have grossed $500 million worldwide. It was nominated for 10 Oscars, winning 2, and spawned multiple sequels. His other famous films include crime thriller The French Connection, which won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Director. Friedkin died before his latest movie, The Kind Mutiny Court Martial, could hit screens at the Venice Film Festival beginning on 30th of August. An armed Hindutva group on motorbikes launched a targeted attack on shops owned by Muslims in the commercial affected Haryana state of India. Oh, that's unfortunate. Was it part of this story?
I think it was a very scary movie, and I was watching the visuals, and I think certainly they scared me. But
I don't like scary movies at all.
I don't like the scary movies at all.
I have to hug my daughters. Rather than them hugging me, I have to hug them. And I cannot do that.
Yeah. Because they're psychologically very disturbing, and I think it takes 2-3 days for me to recover.
It doesn't let me sleep, or as soon as I'm switching off the light,
or even go to the washroom in the first place. So,
don't watch scary movies if you're not a scary movie person. You gotta be braver than that.
Of course, don't do that. But now, since Shehzad, I am an avid book reader, and I read a lot of poetry, I read a lot of fiction, and I read a lot of philosophy. And obviously, we have seen, and especially with the advent of the social media, I generally believe that the writing has been changed and impacted a lot with the advent of the social media in the first place. And obviously, there have been organizations that have sprung up across the world that really wants to bridge that gap and bring together all the poets and all the writers together so that the literary scene can be made more vibrant in the first place, and to have that platform for all of those intellectuals, all of the writers who want to express themselves through their written expression in the first place, right?
Yeah, and Haja, at this point of time, we certainly need to introduce our guest, but I have one simple question. So if the technology is evolving, if we have technological interventions in almost every walk of life, why do you think that the language shouldn't really be evolving?
Language is evolving. Who said it doesn't evolve?
Why do you have to say that, that when it comes down to social media, obviously there's a very different perspective of language over there?
I mean, so for example, we have Chat GPT, right?
Yeah.
So you type anything and it will generate lots of heavy text around there, right? So that will certainly impact how we perceive words, how we perceive fiction, and how we perceive or how we relate to a literary expression in the first place, right? And I think that will also affect the intellectual faculties of lot of people out there, and that is why I am not very comfortable with this development of the Chat GPT and artificial intelligence.
Because your students keep on copying from Chat GPT and you keep on failing them. Don't do that.
I don't fail them in the first place, but I want them to use their intellectual faculties, which they don't, and this really irritates me a lot because I want them to be better at that, right?
Wonderful.
Okay, so we're very glad that we have been joined by people who represent an organization that called the Urban Word. It is a literary arts organization. It was based in the US. It was founded in 1999 and they want to expand the scope of that. And for that they have selected Pakistan as the place because Pakistan has a very vibrant literary culture and we have produced a lot of good writers, good intellectuals, and we had this tradition, very vibrant tradition of poetry, especially dating back to imperial courts of the Mughal Empire and whatnot, Dabistan in Lucknow and whatnot. So in order to talk more about that, how can we bridge that, we're very glad that we have been joined by Michael Cirelli, who happens to be the founder of National Youth Poet Laureate program in Pakistan. Welcome to our show and Assalamu Alaikum.
Walaikum Assalam. Thank you so much for having me.
It's wonderful to have you over here, and for all our audiences around there, ladies and gentlemen, he was a part of the HBO series, Deaf Poetry Jam, and not just that, I think Brave New Voices as well. So thank you so much. It's like a celebrity moment for me. Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. Yeah, he's in Pakistan.
Yeah, wonderful. So joining him, we're also very glad that we have been joined by someone who has graced our studio, and she happens to be Dr. Sara Zaidi. She's a principal researcher, National Youth Poet Laureate program in Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Assalam. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
We're so happy to be here.
So let's kickstart this conversation forward. Please tell us about your organization a little bit, and why have you selected Pakistan as an area where you want to expand your expertise in the first place and incorporate our people into this very vibrant literary tradition?
Sure. I mean, really, we grew this incredible movement in the United States where we believed that young people had powerful voices that could be put onto big platforms. And we already worked with a lot of young writers and we saw the power and the potential that they had in their words. So we started this program called the National Youth Poet Laureate program, and it was really aimed at identifying and celebrating these top writers from across the United States. And our first dream was to maybe see if we could get one of these poets to perform at our city hall in New York City. And when we achieved that goal only a few years later, we thought we had achieved our dreams. But what ended up happening was that states around the country said, well, how can we do this in our cities, in our communities? So we started to replicate the program nationally. And since we created a national movement of these poets, the highlights that we got from them were incredible. So we ended up being asked to be at the White House, at the US Capitol, and as that momentum of the program grew into over 100 cities and states across the United States, we started talking about sort of international expansion. We had a lot of support from the US Embassy and the State Department, who believed in the cultural diplomacy of the arts. And what better place than a country like Pakistan that has such a rich tradition of poetry that's embedded in the culture to be the place where we start our first international endeavor.
And I've certainly seen that picture of yours in the White House alongside Miss Michelle Obama. Yes, that's right. So moving on to you, Dr. Saiba. So Dr. Saiba, what I would certainly want to ask you is, why do you think in the first place that this program was initiated? How do you think it has impacted back in the United States, and how do you think that going beyond borders it will have further more impact, and what sort of an impact are we talking about over here?
Well, I think the impact is huge in the United States. What we've seen and what I've seen as an observer of this program for over almost 20 years is that young people have opportunities now as a result of this program that maybe they wouldn't have had before. They have opportunities to apply and get accepted to universities that are some of the most difficult universities to get into, like Harvard University, and just kind of the opportunities that come there. The young people of Urban Word are now theater actors on Broadway. They're reporting on the local news and national news, and they're doing, they're leaders in their own communities. We're seeing examples of this. And so the potential in Pakistan is limitless.
That's very true.
In our 8 days here, we've seen and met with so many young people, and there's no shortage of brilliance. There's no shortage of desire and drive in young Pakistani people as well. And so we see that they have that potential to kind of achieve their goals and imagine things that were impossible as well. And we hope that that will happen.
Right. So Michael, coming to you, since we're talking about giving a platform to a lot of young people who do not have this opportunity, or I would say accessibility to publish their content or to give voice to their opinions or self-expression in the first place. And let's talk about how does the social media has changed the entire equation. So for example, on Twitter has made that accessibility much more easier because the content gets viral, the threads get viral, and some publishing house approaches that, and it has opened a lot of avenues for them, right? So how do you see this development, and where does your organization fit into this entire context?
Yeah, I mean, social media has been huge in really creating a network of young writers to be celebrated and to really elevate the role and the status of poetry in our country. You know, so, you know, we might have a poet read at City Hall, and that might be retweeted or shared on Instagram over 1 million times. So now all of a sudden, all of these young writers across the country say, oh my gosh, that writer looks just like me. I write like that. I want to do that. And then they start writing, and then the next thing you know, Jill Biden, who's Joe Biden's wife, sees the poet and says, oh, we're about to have an inauguration. What better thing to do than to invite one of your young poets to read at the U.S. inauguration. So just something like that, like they see it on social media, and it really, like, as much as we have our challenges with social media, and there's not a lot, there are some negative things that come out of it, there's also this limitless opportunity for voices that are not heard to be celebrated and elevated.
And you know, which is why it brings me down to where I'll move on to you, Dr. Sara Zaidi, and that is that, you know, when we are to kind of ask about, you know, how to facilitate our youngsters with the generative creative writing, what is the entire concept of it for our audiences, because we go out in 46 different countries, and in how many different countries do you think that this program is already expanded, and what do you look forward to?
So we're very excited to say that Pakistan is the first.
Wow.
And it's the pilot program. And I think that...
And how can someone join you if someone is poet and interested in getting that access towards your platform to publish that piece of writing? So how can someone approach you?
They can go to nationalpoem.org. So really the first phase of the contest is to create an open competition for all young writers across Pakistan ages 16 to 25. They can submit an original poem in either English, Urdu, or bilingual.
I was about to ask this.
So that's the first phase, and that's how we can get a critical mass of young writers interested. And then we're going to take the top 20 poets that'll be published in an anthology. They'll be mentored by writers from all over Pakistan and the United States. They'll have cross-cultural exchanges from poets around the world. And then from that group of 20, we'll select the winner, who hopefully next year, inshallah, will be on your news show with celebrating their work.
And we would certainly want you to be here, you know, so it's like an open invitation whenever you feel like.
Thank you.
And there's one more bit to it, and that is that, I'm sorry that I have to give you this reference point, but that's how I'm thinking right now, right? So please don't be judgmental on this, you know. So what happens is that in our culture over here, and, you know, alongside our neighbors, you know, so what we do is that we use poetry with music a lot of times, you know, and so what we have seen is that, you know, the way, for example, Hotel California and all of these amazing songs that we have been hearing, you know, growing up, it is all of a sudden changed, you know. So there's now Cardi B, and then there's Drake, and then there's DJ Khaled, and, you know, the kind of poetry they're using these days, some find it very explicit, some find it, you know, rhythm to their ears. How do you think that poetry needs to be progressing in terms of when we say that the use of language needs to be adequate?
I mean, I absolutely think that we can really find value in something that is relevant to young writers. So if we automatically dismiss some of the lyrics that are coming out of hip hop, we might dismiss a whole segment of writers that might be interested in our programming. True. So really, when we open up that door to say, you know, this is something that you're interested in, well, there's poetic elements happening here. There's rhyme, there's repetition, there's metaphors, there's similes. You know, we might not agree with all the content, but there is something artistic happening here. Now, what do you have to say? We find that then they start to expand their horizons in literature, and they start to become passionate readers and lovers of all types of work. But if you just say, no, you have to read Shakespeare, then they might shut off immediately. So we say, oh, you like Cardi B? Okay, cool. What can we do with this? Let's try to flip this. How can this be something that's really talking about you.
True.
You know, so so we use it as a door opener to kind of expand the horizon.
It's a student-centered approach, right?
Right. That's wonderful, Dr. Zaidi. Now moving on to you, and obviously you've been educator, and I can understand that. How does the role of ChatGPT is changing that entire scenario? Because you write anything, and obviously in the coming years we will see the advancement in the artificial intelligence, which I do feel will impact the mental faculties of a lot of people, right? And obviously this lazy ease that it has granted to commoners, to the social media and users, will certainly, I do think, erode the mental capacities or capabilities or the creative expression in the first place. How do we reclaim back that entire facade that we are talking about in the first place?
I think by getting them engaged and excited about their own identities, about their own communities, and that's what we aim to do with the National Poem Project Pakistan. And I think that, you know, while there is ChatGPT and there are these shortcuts that exist, no AI can think creatively. No AI actually has the experiences that these young people have. And as much as you kind of try to manipulate the system, I think it's very clear poetry comes from the heart, and our computers don't have hearts. And so I think that what will come of it is maybe it'll make things a little more easier. There will be shortcuts, but I think the work of poetry is one which there are very few shortcuts, because there are no shortcuts to the heart, right? And we can't kind of quantify people's experiences in a computer.
Exactly. And the only shortcut I believe for the heart is I believe the language of love, ladies and gentlemen. And so that certainly happens to be poetry, which is why now when we see that the program is expanding, it's the first time that you've come over here, it's the pilot program. So how are we going to do justice with the different languages, people from different backgrounds, and how they will be writing in their respective languages, and for you to kind of see or guide them? How do you think that's going to take place under this program?
Sure. I mean, I think that that's something that Michael and I have thought a lot about in the conversations. And just recently, there was a young person at one of the workshops we conducted in Lahore who said, well, you're saying that you can submit a poem in Urdu or in English, but what about both? So, and that's great, because this is just another example of how young people are really thinking in ways that we're not thinking. So, and creating languages, new ways of communicating that maybe we wouldn't have thought about. And so I think that, you know, I think that Urdu and English were kind of the preferable languages while we wanted to expand to more languages. I think for this first National Youth Poet Laureate program, I think we'll limit it to Urdu and English. But as it grows, I can imagine that the potential of other languages is
local languages.
And because Pakistan has such a diverse linguistic, it's such a diverse
we have
linguistic
more than 73
place.
languages
Absolutely.
over here.
And so it was very hard to make that decision.
But we are glad that you are here, and since Michael, you are here, so we're not going to, you know, let go of this opportunity. But we'll certainly want you to share a poem with our audiences out there in 46, 47 different countries. Ladies and gentlemen, he's that gentleman whom people want to come over, and he's not available most of the time. So since he is now, I think we're going to request him.
I would love to. You know, I was thinking about you when you were talking about your little princesses. So I wanted to read a poem about my little princess.
That's it.
And you know, when we work with young people, we think of all the lessons that they teach us, and that's part of this journey, getting the feedback from the poets in Pakistan. But the most lessons we learn, as you probably know, is from your kids. So this is about me trying to teach my daughter how to ride a bike, and the poem is called Lesson. It's like riding a bike, they say, when you try to pick something up again. But when you've never done it, equated the motion and the pull and the confidence to get you there, to propel you forward, it's not like riding a bike at all. Today, my daughter is on the side of the metaphor that hasn't yet arrived. The side that's an abstract star shining or collapsing in unfathomable space. Today, we are willing the hypothetical notion that can pull her upright and horizontal and vertical and in orbit, that can make those silver streamers float in the wind. I have no phone, no camera to record this, which is better, I think. Better to have poem and memory as elegant and frail as a rubber tire. What is poetry if not memory pumped up with air? We're in the parking lot of Our Savior's Lutheran Church, and I am running alongside the bike with my hand on the handlebar, waiting for that feeling like a wave to push her forward, waiting to let go and let her silhouette eclipse the moon. But I don't let go. I keep holding on, trying to muscle my way through physics, trying to wind down my uptight. It's almost dark now. The church bells are clanging 8 times, and Aya is on the far side of the parking lot as I try to catch my breath. Aya is riding her bike without me. She is zigzagging like a swallow in the wind as every invisible angel in the cosmos zips behind her, lifting her above the skyline and the sun that has long since retreated. Aya triumphantly looks down on my failure, my hardest lesson, that all it took was to let go for her to go.
Wow,
wonderful,
that was
wonderful,
superb.
beautiful.
And you know, this reminds me that I'm still trying that my daughter kind of learns to ride her bike.
do it.
So I've been pushing, I've been out of breath, and I can certainly
resonate
with what you just said. I do try to let go, but I just couldn't
so
let
hard.
go.
Exactly.
That's the
to let
problem.
go.
It's impossible.
Exactly. But thank you so
Thank
much for
you so
joining us.
much.
But
Thank
very
you.
quickly, before we wrap up this segment, we would certainly want you how your experience was over here in Pakistan for the previous 8 days. Where have you been? What have you eaten?
And did you
been
have the
incredible.
mangoes, because it's our
We've
delight.
had delicious mangoes.
We've had the most incredible jalebi
Yeah.
possible. I didn't even, jalebi doesn't taste like that in the US.
No, the mangoes don't taste like that. The chane don't taste like that.
Chane.
It's just been an incredible experience.
We were
and
able to visit the Lahore Fort.
the Lahore Fort. I mean, the
Incredible.
most beautiful experiences has really been meeting young people along the way,
Right.
meeting people in different institutions, colleges, and venues. And just lastly, I'd like to say that for the young people that want to be involved, the website is nationalpoem.org.
Right.
Nationalpoem.org. And we look forward to meeting more young writers. We're here in Islamabad for the rest of the week, then to Karachi, then back to Lahore. So we're here for a whole month. We practically live here now.
Yeah.
And we love it.
That's
Right.
wonderful, and
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so much once again for
Thank
being
you
with
so
us.
much.
It was lovely to be in conversation with you. And on behalf of all of Pakistanis who are out there, would certainly want to thank you for coming down to
Appreciate you.
Pakistan.
Thank you so much.
And our doors are always open for you. It will always stay open for you. And whenever you feel like, you can always be back. Thank you so much
Thank you
once
very
again for
much.
being with us. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, we're heading out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning.
Welcome back, and before we go on to the break, we are having a very interesting conversation regarding recruiting the young people and engaging them in their intellectual faculties. But Shahzad, do you remember a few days ago we went to a very specialized hospital that was just on the, I think, outskirts of the Islamabad.
And I loved every bit of being there.
Yes, yes, and they had a very advanced sort of a machinery, and obviously the good part is that they are serving the marginalized communities there and making sure that they're contributing their part in making the access towards the healthcare a more universal concept, and which should not be excluded of the minorities and the poor people out there. And of course, we are talking about Islamabad Diabetes Center in the first place. We had a wonderful interview there. We looked at the machineries there, and we looked out at how they're actually tackling the diabetes in Pakistan, and especially in the South Asia, because it is one of the very emerging challenge when we talk about the diabetes.
Because Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately was ranked at #1, when we speak about diabetes prevalence over here inside the country, all over the world, and it is alarming. But, the best part was that 60% of all the patients who actually come to the diabetes center, ladies and gentlemen, are treated free. They're given free medicines, insulin, consultation, maybe anything. And I think that's something which we certainly would want to talk about, that how do you think such hospitals really work? And we're very lucky that we've been joined by one of the most handsomest chief executive officers that I've ever come across in my life, ladies and gentlemen. He happens to be the Chief Executive Officer, as I've mentioned, of the Diabetes Center Pakistan and Overseas Chapter. He is Mr. Meesaq Arif. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm feeling very good.
And thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. So, you know, the question is very basic over here. Since you happen to be the Chief Executive Officer, and, you know, it's not that a long time has passed by that you've been the Chief Executive Officer of this particular hospital. But, sir, what is the concept of such hospitals where we say that 60% of all of those patients who are going to come in will be treated for free, and how does it work?
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to this lovely forum. First of all, I would like to appreciate PTP World for doing a commendable service. You are being viewed all across the globe, and the tremendous viewers list, and I am one of the strongest fan of the program. That's my congratulations to you.
It's an honor, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The concept of the diabetes hospital and the charity hospital, it's not new. It's all over the world. We have already many organizations in Pakistan which are, you know, based on charity, and it's the community service. Similarly, like we have some Idi Trust, we have Shaukat Khanam, but Shaukat Khanam is a cancer specialized. The diabetes hospital is first of its kind in Pakistan, which is taking care of the diabetic patients and related diseases which are caused due to the diabetes. Now, the question that the concept of the charity, and we are 60%, we are the patient that we are taking care of, or they are fed or they are sponsored by the Zakat fund, that we get the donation from the Zakat fund. And we are Sharia compliant. All those patients, those who we are giving the free treatment from the Zakat fund, they are basically scrutinized by the Zakat committee sitting in our office. And that makes us the system transparent. That makes the system more streamlined, and only those patients get care who are actually a deserving class. So 60% of the patients are being taken care through Zakat, through donations, and a free treatment.
Wonderful. And sir, with such models, we've always seen that there are always international collaborations or international donors as well. So, you know, so obviously having a Sharia committee within, you know, people, you know, who are going to identify whether somebody is needy or not, that's something very different. But when we move on to international collaborations, when we talk about the overseas chapter, obviously we have a lot of Pakistanis who have such big hearts who are always out there to help people. So how do they contribute to this cause?
Yeah, again, a very, very pertinent question.
And how to mobilize their support in the first place?
Yeah, that makes us sustainable.
Yeah.
And that's very important, that, like I said, we are a diabetes center, Pakistan and Overseas Chapter, that I am the CEO. The main hospital is on the Murray Expressway, is about 10 canals area, over 130 staff that we have, a specialized doctor. We have a spokes model, we have a hub, we have a spokes in the GT Road DHA, we have a hospital, we have in G8, we have in Lahore, we have in Sahiwal. Now, apart from the local establishment, we definitely need support from the donors from abroad, expats, diaspora. So we have a TDC established setups in UK. We have a setup in Australia. We have a setup in USA. We have a setup in UAE. So all these segments, the TDC segments abroad, they regularly promote the cause of this donation in the charity hospital. They promote and it's to support this through fundraising events, and not only the expats or the diaspora is supporting through donation, through charity, but even the local community of threat areas also supporting. There's a huge money coming in. The hospital the Sahiwal hospital is a huge setup that is coming up. We are likely to inaugurate the foundation ceremony in the end September, the first week of October. It's over a $2 billion project. And the entire hospital is being financed by the TDC, the Diabetic Center, Australia.
Wow.
Wonderful.
The last, on the 5th August, they had a fundraising event in the Brisbane, and I think over $100,000 was collected. So those people sitting abroad, their generous donation is making us sustainable and moving on with the operation.
Wow.
And obviously, the projects of such huge scales are not without their own sets of challenges in the first place, right? So, if someone wants to follow your footsteps, because obviously we have a lots of prevalence of the diseases in Pakistan, unfortunately, and if someone wants to follow your footsteps, what are the challenges that you encountered, and how do you make sure that there is no hindrance in your way of smooth functioning in the first place?
I think the most important thing is that the TDC, the diabetes hospital and its speciality, this has to go public, it has to go live, we have to outreach to the people, we have to tell them what we are serving, what we are delivering. The biggest challenge is the marketing that we don't have. People are unaware about the diabetes and its related issues. The biggest challenge is unawareness about the masses. True. As you already mentioned, that the Pakistan is, if nothing else, but it is ranking on one of the top slots in the diabetes. This is so unfortunate.
True.
It's not because that we don't have the resources. It's not that we don't have the will to go forward to combat this menace, but we need to tell people. People need to know it, that this is a diabetes, this is a serious disease, it's a root cause to all related
and the awareness needs to be out there. But there's one technical question which I would certainly want you to kind of shed light on, and that is that, you know, when we speak of such a charitable service or such hospitals, what happens is that usually, because, you know, with diabetes there's so many other complications, you know, with eyes, with your feet, with your organs, you know, so it affects the entire body. Now what happens is that, you know, it might be the situation that at times you might not have the right expertise to, you know, to kind of treat that gentleman or that lady who is presented with whatever symptoms, you know. So do you think that when we speak of TDC, they are going to look forward to other venturing or probably discussing their cases with other doctors and other hospitals and experts from all over the world, or is it just going to be whatever facility you get within that hospital and that premises?
Yeah, very, very nice question, very pertinent. Yes, the concept to establish the diabetes center is to have a specialized hospital in the diabetes.
True.
And its related diseases. Now, what are the related diseases? Somebody is a diabetes, then diabetes is the root cause to affect the kidneys.
Yep.
It's a root cause to affect your eyesight. It's, you know, so we are addressing all those areas which are related to which area is affected due to the diabetes. We are now expanding ourselves to going into gestation, the pregnancy. We are going to the type 1 diabetes, that is the diabetes in the children.
Right.
You know, and the vascular surgery that we are doing. So all these related diseases are being addressed. We have a qualified, specialized doctors available 24/7, and we are treating. Trust me, it's so satisfying that we are providing a service to the humanity.
And I've been in conversation with a lot of patients from your hospital, to be very honest, and I'll be very honest over here that where credit is due, it's due. And they were really happy of the fact that, imagine that there have been people who've been treated for the last 10 years, 5 years, free medicines, and your free consultations. Every single time they have a problem, ladies and gentlemen, they show up at the hospital, they're being treated just like, you know, they have treated us and, you know, our entire team, you know, so there was no difference amongst them. The SOPs are made in there, you know, so they're making sure they're going to look after people very well. And that's something which I'm an eyewitness to. It's not just that I only went there for a program recording. I went afterwards as well, and I've asked a few people who were outside or probably commuting within the hospital. But sir, very quickly now, you know, obviously you have the Australia chapter, you have the US chapter, UAE chapter, you know, the UK chapter. How do you think that people from Pakistan watching us as of now, or because we go out in 46 different countries, so if somebody wants to contribute to the cause, how do you think that they can do that? How do you think that they can reach to the TDC?
Yeah, I think it would be very unfair to say that we are not being supported by the local community or the Pakistan. Yes, the huge number in Pakistan, the people are supporting, they are donating, they are collaborating, not only the community. If somebody is not, that does not mean he doesn't want. That I said, we need to outreach to these people. We need to sell the concept of the diabetes center in Pakistan. Apart from that, beside the local community, we are outreaching to the public sector. We recently had signed an MOU with the Pakistan Baitul Mal.
Wow, yeah. We were there
it's a
too,
huge
yeah,
setup.
we witnessed
Now, those patients that we think are deserving, that they should be treated through zakat, so we would be sending those the bills to the zakat, to the Baitul Mal. They will be supporting us. We are in the process of signing an MOU with the Balochistan Health Ministry. So they have promised to give us a full block from from one of the Sheikh Zayed hospital. We are going to transfer it, convert into a specialized diabetes hospital.
Wonderful.
So likewise, we got an area from in Sindh also. We are approaching them also. So it has to be a public-private cooperative partnership. It's, let alone the government cannot take care of the patient. Let alone the private sector or the corporation cannot do it. It has to be a collaborative, concerted effort to address these issues, because this is the national issue.
Right.
Exactly. And thank you so much, sir, for putting it this beautifully out there for people, you know, who have contributed to this cause. And yes, at the same time, you know, I'll still have to come back to that, okay, you know, if there are people who just, you know, after watching the program might have made up their mind that they want to donate, so how can they reach out to the TDC?
Yeah, TDC, we have a complete, very interactive website. We have separate, dedicated accounts that they can donate. They can directly send their donation to our the various accounts. And there is a system of accountability and transparency in the hospital. Not a penny is wasted. Not a penny is wasted. I am making a comment. And I pledge to all the audience who are viewing that be assured that this is a great service, and be assured that we are going to save every penny that you pay to us.
And I think as a national broadcaster, as PTV, it is our responsibility to give platform to such sort of voices in the first place, and make sure that we give them opportunity so they can project their cause, and we've also contributed to their cause in the first place. And with that, we would like to also wrap up our segment in the first place, Shehzad, and say thank you to Meesaq sir for coming here and for having this wonderful conversation. And until next time, so it's a goodbye and Allah Hafiz and good morning.
Have a great day.